Is Tarisland worth playing? Or is it a cheap mobile WoW knockoff? I think for some people it's probably worth a look, but I wouldn't expect too much. Let's find out why. So what is Tarisland? Tarisland is a tab target MMO made by Tencent, and it's available for PC and mobile. And it does feel very WoW inspired, and the theory is because WoW was getting banned in China, which I think it's actually been subsequently unbanned, well, we'll make our own with mobile and blackjack. And it does actually feature a variety of casual and group-based activities, including quests, dungeons, and raids. But is it worth playing? Well, I'm going to list the negatives quickly, and you're probably going to think it's not. The camera is awful, the movement is bad, animation on the mount is shocking, the map is stuttery, there's no visual progression when you get new items, the text by default is scrolling across the screen like it's some Chinese livestream, there's gacha, the story is awful, the voice acting I'm pretty sure is AI, the classes are gender and race locked, there's an incredible amount of systems, it's probably pay to win, it's time gated, it's mobile designed, the repetitive class design, there's leveling up abilities for no reason, and the lack of PC options for the most basic of things. And honestly, probably more than that. However, having said all of those negatives, I think for some people it's going to be a nice little fun distraction for a short to medium period of time. In the game itself, when you start, you can pick between 9 classes. Each of them has 2 specs, so some of them are either tank and DPS, some are healer and DPS, and some just have 2 different DPS specs. All of them except 2 though are gender and race locked, and the 2 that aren't are just not gender locked. The character customization is a little bit lacking, nothing special, but you can change some very basic stuff like hairstyles. And then you jump into the game, and I was initially going to try and explain what happened in the story, but frankly it's so bad that I just couldn't follow it. I'm pretty sure that the voice acting is AI. Some parts definitely are AI, I think, but there might have been a real voice actor as well. It's very hard to be 100% sure. The women, from my taste, sort of sound worse than the men. Somebody's going to call me sexist there, but you know what I mean. I just think like the quality of the acting, at least, or the AI. So maybe the AI is sexist, not me. And there are definitely some lowlights when it comes to the voice acting. If you know, you know. There's Moon and Attack Minion. Attack Minion? I'm not going to elaborate. I think the game, honestly, is better if you don't try and follow the story. It's not like Wuthering Waves bad, and you can actually easily skip stuff. And during the story, there are some cool gameplay set pieces, which you can enjoy. And as a tutorial, it sort of functions, it's quite decent. But yeah, skip the story, it's just not that great. And when you jump into the game past the tutorial, one thing you might notice, I think, is that the camera is quite bad. And the available settings that you can change are also not very good. You can change the sensitivity, but if you set it so high, you'll be moving very quickly, but you'll be able to move up and down very easily. But if you set it to a level that you're comfortable with, which for me is not a lot of sensitivity, when I try and move up and down, I basically get capped by hitting the edge of the screen, which only matters when you're going up and down, not left and right. Left and right is like infinite, but up and down you have to sort of like unleft click or unright click and then do it again. It's very frustrating. There's a lot of options that the game doesn't have or I can't find. I don't think there's any VSync. There's no ability to turn off the enemy PvP tiles and so much more. The settings and the options are very limited, probably because this game is also on mobile. The movement is snappy, but it's probably a little bit too snappy. The mounts, for example, have no turning animation, and it just looks absolutely janky as balls. The minimap is quite literally at 1 frame per second, which I think is by design, but it just looks stupid. You also can't zoom in or out of the little minimap, so that's annoying. The game basically has all the hallmarks of a classic bad mobile MMO without actually being a truly awful bad mobile MMO. It does have auto run like BDO, but I don't think that's a massive issue myself. There is actually like straight up gacha in the game, but only for skins. That's literally out of the Genshin playbook. As I mentioned earlier, there's also no visual progression when you get new items. Basically, each class has a standard look, and the only way to change that is with a skin. I think you can get some skins in game. Obviously the best ones come from the gacha. But honestly, it's free to play. I don't mind that. One of the key things in MMO is the combat, and then when you get to the combat, it's a little bit old school and outdated. It's traditional tab target, and it doesn't really offer anything new. There's like 7 core abilities, 2 of which will have long cooldowns, and then there's these 3 ultimate abilities, and then you get 3 potion style slots. I don't mind that selection of abilities, but for some people that will just be too basic. The classes, if I'm honest, all seem relatively similar in concept. Probably the most unique class is the Bard, which obviously like combinations these musical notes and crescendos and all that kind of stuff. Actually sort of fun. But basically the combat and the classes are all serviceable, nothing fantastic. The game also has like a billion systems. There's like battle pass rewards, seasonal rewards, login rewards, all that kind of stuff, which I think traditionally is there to try and hide the pay to win. But the thing is, the pay to win in this game, at the moment at least, isn't that bad. Now, no pay to win is good for me. I prefer absolutely none of it, but it doesn't seem that bad right now. The way that it works is that you buy these crystals. The crystals you then sell for in-game gold. It's effectively like a WoW token, but the crystals aren't used for gameplay because it's a free-to-play game. They're actually used for cosmetics. And with that gold then, you can then buy items from the trading posts like the gems, the mats, potions, some of which do more than just healing you. And indeed you can buy some gear. But a little bit like World of Warcraft, it seems that the best gear comes from actual content. So yes, it is absolutely pay to win. It's a free-to-play Asian mobile game, so you sort of expect that. But at the moment, it's not super egregious, like it's not Diablo Immortal level. Now the problem here is that once you have these systems, it becomes very easy for them to get worse over time. You have like a seasonal reset in this game, which will be a trigger for more pay to win. I don't know what you lose in that seasonal reset. I don't think it's like that bad, but the game basically might trigger you to want to pay to win at some point, I assume. To be honest, it's going to be very easy to dial up the pay to win if they so choose. But I think if you don't mind World of Warcraft, where you're buying gold in that game, then I don't think you'll mind it here. I mean, as I'm going to say a couple of times, it's a free to play game. You can sort of just play till you have fun. And then if you feel the urge to spend, you can stop. Personally though, I wish pay to win just wasn't a thing and it should go away and never come back ever. Please go away, pay to win. I don't like you. Now speaking of WoW, this is a little bit of a weird segue. There are straight up time gates in Tarisland, like major ones. So if you're familiar with Season of Discovery, basically what they did is they capped the player base at certain leveling milestones. Well, Tarisland is doing that, but on a day-to-day basis. So on day 1, you could get to max level 20. And on day 2, we are now max 26, which is where we are at the time of recording this video. I literally cannot go any further. Now, some people will absolutely hate this. I personally don't mind it. It's nice to see all the players at the sort of same kind of level, all wanting to do the same sort of content. It basically makes the leveling content more relevant, because if it wasn't there, we'd all be max level by now doing the end game content instead of doing the level 26 dungeon. So I personally don't hate it, but I can see why some people who maybe don't have the right sort of schedule, maybe you're infrequent in the way that you can play games, might strongly dislike that. Or if you're maybe a content creator and you just want to blast all the way through it, you also might dislike that. I think it might actually come from some Chinese rule where you can't spend all day on your PC. I don't mind it. Some people will absolutely hate it. And you're not wrong. If you hate it, you hate it. That's fair enough. I can't tell you you're wrong. If I'm honest though, overall, the game has so many things that I don't like. And I think most other people probably won't like them either. I can definitely see why people will play and just give up instantly. Maybe question why you're playing a game like this when WoW exists. And that's fair enough. You're not wrong. It makes sense. If you get like that and you play it and you don't want to play it anymore, stop. It's a free-to-play game. You didn't lose anything. Any one of the problems I mentioned could very easily be a deal breaker. And I think if my main game was actually having a lot of content right now, I probably wouldn't touch Tarisland. But my main game is effectively dead at the minute for now. You will. I mean, it's sad. It is what it is. Now, I personally think that most of the systems in Tarisland should not exist in a classic PC MMO. I don't think they belong. I don't want gacha. I don't want pay to win. But this is not a classic PC MMO. This is basically, as I said at the start, a knockoff mobile WoW that's free to play, that also has gacha. I think if this game launched when we were in the golden age of MMOs, I really don't think it would have lasted very long. I think most people would have just dismissed it and we would never have looked back. But we're in such a glut of new MMOs at the minute that people are a little bit desperate, and this game might satisfy a little itch for some people. So let's talk about what Tarisland does well. So I mentioned it was on mobile, and that meant some of the customization options just simply aren't good enough and aren't there. But what there is some decent quality of life features. For example, there's these presets that let you switch between 3 different builds, basically. 3 different outfits, 3 different talents, and so on and so forth. Pretty nice, actually. I wish New World had that. But really, where Tarisland shines is its instanced content. The world's okay, but the instance content like dungeons, raids, PvP and stuff like that, actually quite good. The dungeons are 5-man with matchmaking, so quite easy to get into. And each day so far, we've had one new dungeon, and there are 3 difficulties. There's normal, which is pretty damn easy. There's heroic, which isn't that hard, but not super challenging either. And then there is challenge mode, which is very, very difficult, or at least the one we tried was very, very difficult at the level we were trying it. Now, the challenge mode itself is just for a title. There's no extra loot, so it's not imperative that you do that. And if I'm honest, I quite like that as an idea. The dungeons though have real mechanics. In one, you get turned into a sheep and you're running away from a wolf. Take that, Wuthering Waves. Or it can just be as simple as avoiding circles and AoEs on the ground. Before you go into the dungeon, you can click a guide section and it'll tell you what to expect. However, there are also on-screen visuals as well as audio clues, hence why my flashback to attack minion, they can be annoying. The dungeons so far I think have been very enjoyable. I really enjoyed the challenge mode with some guildies. The raid is sort of similar. We've had one so far. There's normal and heroic, and I don't know the challenge mode at the time of recording because I can't be bothered going checking. But you do need to do the mechanics in the raid. It's not super easy. You actually have to have the right stuff and get it done. Not done the heroic mode, so don't know. There's also a mode which I forgot the name of, where basically you do a solo boss. And there are different levels of this. It's the same boss, but you have to like ramp up the difficulty. And the way you ramp up the difficulty is to either hinder yourself or boost the boss. So you might decrease your own life, but you might increase the enemy's life. It's not been super challenging like so far, but I think eventually that could be a super fun mode. If I'm honest, the PvE is probably this game's best selling point. It's WoW, but simplified. But the challenge isn't necessarily super easy either if you so choose. I think the normal mode can probably be done on mobile. Overall though, I really enjoyed it. It was decent. And do you know what else is decent? The PvP. If you don't mind tab target combat, I myself am an action combat Andy, then the PvP's alright. There's 2 main categories of PvP, battlegrounds and raids. Now the battlegrounds use something that they call your PvP rank basically, which if I'm honest is a truly dumb system where you level up your PvP rank and then you become stronger in the battlegrounds. And it looks like you can get super strong with that. So I don't like that system. I don't really like it being there, but it's there. But there are 3 different battlegrounds in the game and they rotate per day. There's a push-pull cart one, sort of similar to like Overwatch. There's one where you kill people and hand in the tokens. And then there's one where it's just go and capture these certain like circles. Nothing crazy, but all pretty decent. There is also going to be a PvP arena, which I'm not sure if it's 3-man or 5-man or what it is, but that's not in the game right now. I think that's going to get unlocked as part of the time gating, basically. However, that will be equalized gear, and I don't think your PvP rank matters. That's all going to be skill, baby, which means I probably shouldn't do it. Honestly, Tarisland is pretty confusing. I should probably hate it, but I don't. I don't actually hate it. I think because I'm not playing anything else right now, but I don't hate it. So for me, I'm pretty much going to ignore the story, ignore the gacha, ignore pretty much everything except the dungeons, raids, and PvP. I'm going to try and maximize my fun for whatever period of time I actually play the game. When the fun stops, I'll stop. A little bit like gambling, except I don't gamble. That's why I'm not doing the gacha. If you play something like World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy, I don't really see any reason to change. Just stick with what you've got, I think. But if you want a free-to-play, no-sub game, then it's not that bad. If you want a game that you can play whilst pooping, then it's pretty good. It might be the best mobile MMO, actually. I really think that. Maybe Albion Online might beat it, but beyond that, I don't know what the competition is. But the game is free. You can just try it. Is it worth playing? Well, you're not spending a dime, so you can just go ahead and try it. You don't really have to give that much information to the CCP if that's what you're worried about. To be honest, most of you probably played League of Legends and given more to Tencent than you would expect anyway, but you know, maybe that's a concern. Just an email address, I think, is all you need. But yeah, it's a Chinese mobile MMO, probably going to be paid to win, but the content's actually quite okay. If you're somebody who's waiting around for Throne of Liberty, probably a semi-decent thing to play until that game arrives. I'm going to stop. I could probably talk about this game for like multiple hours. There's loads of things that I really don't like about it, but when I do the dungeon and I'm having fun doing the mechanics, all of that sort of goes away. You know what it actually makes me think? Maybe I will actually like WoW retail. I like the dungeons. It's good fun. Let me know your thoughts though. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? I'll be very curious about this one. For now, have a most beautiful day. If you want to support me, then becoming a Patreon is truly the best way. Otherwise, you can come and watch me play this and probably other games in the future over on Twitch. I don't think Tarisland's a game you're going to be playing in like 3 to 6 months, but it might be a game that you can play for a couple of weeks. Check it out. It's free. No referral link, no nothing. I'm not sponsored. Check it. Do it. Or don't. It's fine. It's your life. Have a beautiful day. Like and subscribe. Goodbye.